Yo guys, this is Jarrett, aka the Saint of Sins on Xbox Live, bringing you another edition of MLB Thoughts. And it seems I can't go a day without making a mistake or falling quickly behind the times. Firstly, yesterday I made a huge mistake in my previous video where I stated that Hank Conger provided no depth in the outfield. The truth is he shouldn't, because he's a catcher for the Angels, and a pretty highly touted catcher prospect from recent years for the franchise. I didn't realize the mistake until just hours prior to the recording of this video, which goes to show that I'm extremely forgetful and oftentimes very sloppy in my research. The second thing, more movement was made yesterday after my video finally uploaded last night. Let's begin with the trade I talked about yesterday, Dempster moving to Atlanta. A few more developments have occurred that reveal that Dempster is still weighing his options, and as he's doing this, talks between the Cubs and Dodgers for the right-handed 35-year-old continued and look like they may be edging close to a deal as well. Again, the decision rests on Dempster's approval. Either he heads to Atlanta to join a quickly growing strong rotation, or he jumps to Los Angeles to rejoin former teammate Ted Lilly, who was champion for the Dempster acquisition. One of the key components to the deal seemed to be whether or not the Dodgers would part ways with their #1 ranked prospect, right-handed pitcher Zach Lee. Currently sitting on Baseball America's ranking as the number 62 rated prospect in all of baseball, the 20-year-old is currently looking at a 2-3 record with a 4.55 ERA in 12 starts in AA Chattanooga. This is particularly good news to the Dodgers, as late last night, they pulled a deal with the Miami Marlins that saw them deal their number 3 ranked prospect in their system, Nate Eovaldi. Late last night, the Dodgers sent a package of the 22-year-old right-hander along with minor league right-hander Scott McGough for relief pitcher Randy Choate and shortstop Hanley Ramirez. To be honest, this was an inevitability. Ramirez was growing tired of the culture in Miami for years, and it showed in his on-field performance. He was tired of the organization never taking the steps to build the team into contenders, was upset with the Reyes signing when it became clear he was going to have to move out of his position for the newest acquisition, and seemed to no longer care for the game after having gotten into arguments with former Marlins manager Freddie Gonzalez. With D. Gordon on the disabled list, Ramirez will return to the shortstop position. But in all honesty, this guy is no longer a shortstop. He wasn't much of one to begin with, as he always had stunted range and a poor glove. He's now gotten too bulky for the position and has the frame of a third baseman. The fact he didn't want to move made him a detriment to the team, and considering how many head cases the Marlins stocked up on during the offseason, this was probably their best move to make. As for Choate, he grants the Dodgers some much needed depth as he becomes their second lefty out of the pen. If anything, he was the real key to this deal, and Hanley was more like the added portion dessert. Right now, chalk this up as a Dodgers victory, especially if they could still manage a deal for Dempster while holding on to Lee. The Marlins won't be seeing the upside of this trade for another year or so. Other moves that happened around the league, the Phillies extended Cole Hamels to 6 years at $140 million. How they manage this and where they fix the books to ensure this kind of money is beyond me, because all season long I remember hearing how the Phillies don't have the money to make this kind of investment in Hamels, leaving him open to walking at the end of the season if they didn't trade him. But there's still going to be the movement of Shane Victorino, as there's no room at all to extend him now. Either a team gives into the Phil's price tag on the 31-year-old Hawaiian, or he walks on free agency. And honestly, it seems the Phillies are asking too much for the switch hitter, as he's struggling with a .253 average with only a .316 on-base percentage. Meanwhile, the D-backs simultaneously designated Ryan Roberts for assignment, only to end up trading him to the Tampa Bay Rays for 25-year-old minor leaguer Tyler Bortnick. I personally love this deal, as I like Roberts' flexibility as an infielder and his gritty approach at the plate. He adds some much needed depth to the Rays bench and infield. And finally, the Pirates acquired Wandy Rodriguez for 3 minor leaguers, and seeing as tomorrow I'll be talking about the National League Central, I'll save all of my thoughts on this deal for then. Back to the West and how I see the division shaping up. It's difficult to think of which of the 2 bottom tier teams is actually the worst of the division, the Colorado Rockies or the San Diego Padres. On the one hand, the Rockies have suffered major injuries, horrible setbacks on deals heading into this season, and don't have a lot of depth. On the other, the Padres simply lack consistency and strength. Neither team really strikes me as being better than the other, but I'll give the Padres credit. they at least know what kind of franchise they are and are building around that concept. One of the things that bothers me about the Rockies, seeing as I'm an invested fan of theirs, is that they're a franchise trying to change the mold of what they are. They seem to like the understanding with many of their recent moves that they're not going to be a pitching and defense team simply because no pitcher has ever gone into Colorado and posted up Cy Young stats. Ubaldo Jimenez excluded. They're playing in an atmosphere that's very thin and allows for carry on their fly balls, is difficult for many athletes to endure, especially for a lengthy season, and to top it off, the ballpark isn't exactly designed to protect pitchers. They shouldn't be building around speed, they shouldn't be building with a defense first mindset, they shouldn't be looking for dominant pitching. The formula is painfully clear: power and ground balls. But anyway, enough of that rant. They'll of course be sellers, but they don't have a lot to offer that can return what they will need versus what they'll like. Gone will be Giambi, though his recent placement on the disabled list hurts the Rockies' hopes of getting much for him, as well as their ability to move him prior to the non-waiver trade deadline. There's always the waiver trades, and that's another sticking point for the Padres' victory over the Rocks. They're going to have very many good pieces to choose from who all seem to be open to trade discussion. Recently, the Padres extended Carlos Quentin through 2015 with a mutual option for 2016. And though the Padres could hold on to him for that length, it's likely this could simply make him more appealing to those teams hot after Diamondbacks outfielder Justin Upton, who are leery of the price tag. Options are available for Edison Volquez and Clayton Richards. There's talk surrounding Chase Headley. Chris Denorfia could be made available at the right price. Mark Kotsay looks like a viable pinch hitter option for teams in need of depth off the bench. Houston Street could find himself once again on the move. Joe Thatcher could also be a big piece to move as he's a strong lefty presence out of the pen. These are all options the Padres have to sell, and they're willing to make those kinds of moves to strengthen their farm system and build for their future. They certainly have enough youth on the current roster to start leading towards better times after this season, and I look forward to seeing what kind of hauls they pull in. Now, the rest of the race is where things get really interesting. The Diamondbacks had already gone on record that they're open to trade discussion on the 24-year-old Upton, but this isn't any indication that they're giving up on their season, and rightfully so, as they can easily slip back into the hunt with stronger outings from their young pitching core and continued high-level play from Aaron Hill and Jason Kubel. The sale of Upton is more a move to get the best possible offers for their problem areas while opening up the outfield to their young and very ready outfield prospects. There's just one problem I have with all of this. They're still insistent on a third baseman. Imagine my surprise when I hear about Ryan Wheeler from my good friend, Big Guy, who just prior to the All-Star break pointed out to me that Wheeler was batting .351 through 93 games in AAA Reno. In addition to that, he had 15 home runs with 90 RBIs. Let me repeat that because it bears repeating. 15 home runs with 90 RBIs. That was Mike Trout-esque devastation of AAA pitching and was formidable production with runners on. Big Guy and I questioned why he wasn't being called up at the time until we started looking at his fielding numbers. It started to become clear as to why the Diamondbacks were ignorant of their own farm system's most dominant bat. His fielding was fairly poor at almost all positions he was placed. First base, third base, left field. It looked like they figured he was going to be a designated hitter and probably would have been fine with moving him to an AL team in exchange for an equally amazing third base prospect who could play better defense. Now that he's up, it's only a matter of time to see what kind of production he has on this strong unit and how his presence possibly alters the price tag of Upton. What makes things even more interesting is that the team isn't planning on moving Steven Drew despite him becoming a free agent at the end of the season. They seem determined to keep the left-handed hitting shortstop. So this is a team I expect to be buying, especially if they move Upton, as they open up the outfield to Gerardo Parra and AJ Pollock. As for where I can see them landing in the standings, I think they might have enough push to compete for one of the two wildcard spots, namely hurdling over the Los Angeles Dodgers, who have really been slipping thanks in large part to the rotation being so inconsistent at times. Speaking of which, This is a team I fully expect to still be on the market for starting pitching, as Chad Billingsley has been a tremendous disappointment on the season despite posting 10 quality starts out of his 19 appearances. The reason for this? He's allowed 60 hits in 50 innings pitched at home, surrendering a .300 batting average against with a .432 ERA. Offensively, the team is solid enough to be competitive now, but realistically, they're going to be in the market for some run producers. It's hard to figure what position they'll be in search of help for, but one has to suspect that first base is going to be a priority, as James Loney has been disappointingly inefficient. If things continue, they'll likely be stuck in this three-way battle for the West as the team looking from the outside. I think this race is going to be so close that I really expect whatever team ends in second will not only get the top wildcard spot, but might ultimately end up winning the one-game playoff to enter into the NLDS. I feel the division is so tough right now that I'm a believer that the West will be represented in the NLCS. But we've still got the Giants to look at, and this is a team that would be in a much better shape in terms of their bullpen needs if Brian Wilson were healthy and still pitching today. While Santiago Casilla has proven to be a suitable replacement, the fact is he has blown 6 saves already and is pitching to a .316 ERA and is allowing a .243 batting average against with a .514 slugging percentage with runners in scoring position. To compound the issue further, in 27 1/3 innings, in the 9th inning, he's allowed 29 hits, 9 for extra bases, and surrendered 18 runs. So it's no wonder they're eyeing the Indians' dominant closer, Chris Perez, to fill in the role of their closer for the stretch. Offensively, the team has a good balance, but lacks some serious depth. Of course, they're going to get big production out of their own stars in Buster Posey and Pablo Sandoval, but they're going to need more out of Brandon Belt and Brandon Crawford, to name a few. Their problem area is easily the shortstop position, but first base is also problematic with Aubrey Huff suffering injury and following up a terrible 2011 season with an even worse 2012. The good news? There are some really good options there, such as the Cubs' Brian LaHare or the Phillies' Ty Wigginton. The bad news? There are cheaper options from within the division, such as the Pods' Mark Kotsay or the Rockies' Jason Giambi. But when dealing with in-division trades, cheap suddenly looks more expensive. As for shortstop, the Giants aren't going to shy away from picking up an older veteran that could fill in the need, so I expect they're going to be looking at Jamie Carroll from the Twins, Marco Scutaro from the Rocks, or even Willie Bloomquist from the D-backs. Though that one seems highly unlikely to ever happen, what with Arizona being in striking distance of getting back into this race. In all of this, I don't feel as though I've defined how I see the division aligning, so let's go over this once more. I see the Rockies kicking rocks at the bottom of the cellar, with the Padres edging out with a 60-plus win season. I'm thinking the Dodgers may end up watching the season slip through their fingers as the D-backs begin to surge and battle the Giants for the pennant. I could see Arizona taking the West with some rejuvenated pitching and their offense continuing to be amazing, but the safer bet for me is the Giants taking the pennant and a ride to the NLCS should they end up facing off against the Central or a non-Western team wildcard winner. So with all of that, that's going to do it for this edition of MLB Thoughts. I will see you guys later. Peace.